So the headline and the body of text are completely different, both of them, on each one of those banners. I would make sure those banners had the same design, though, because the more variables you change at once, the more you're compromising your test. You want to isolate the things you actually want to test. So once you know, hey, this general type of messaging is performing much better than this other type of messaging with this audience, then maybe you split test the background of the banner.
Hey guys, it's Mike from Make Time Online, and today we're joined by Pribyl from the Free Internet Marketing Project. So this is the part 2 from the chat that we had started last week, but it ended up being a really long one, and I figured it was almost 2 real distinct parts. So part 1 last week was all about outsourcing, scaling your business, whether you want to hire someone, some tips and ideas for doing that, and the kind of what order you should hire people in and who you should hire first. And then this part today is all about conversion optimization and really monetization. So if you're at a stage in your business where you are maybe getting traffic to your site, or you've kind of got a lot of leads coming into your email list and things like that, then this chat today is such a good one, because there could just be one tip in here which could end up making you tens of thousands of dollars in the future that you just maybe haven't heard of before. So definitely listen out to this, because he actually even goes into some like nitty gritty things as well, which I kind of wasn't expecting, but he's given away so much value in this chat. Anyway, as always, you can jump to the last few minutes just to get the summary from me if you are in a rush, but if not, enjoy this one. So I would love to know, if you've got a niche website, let's go just purely on a niche website, because I find that's kind of easier to kind of talk about. Let's use an example. Have you got any examples of niche websites that you normally go for?
I mean, something that I have that gets traffic and I'm neglecting right now is a virtual reality niche website.
Oh, nice. That sounds cool. Right. So let's say you've started a virtual reality niche website. You're at a stage where you're getting consistent traffic every month, and you've maybe hired your first writer. So content is kind of dealing with itself now. What are some of your steps to increase that monetization and make it more efficient on your website?
So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at, the first thing I'm going to look at is Google Search Console, and I'm going to start shifting my focus to things that I can see that Google is trying to rank me for, that I maybe with just a few tweaks to on-page SEO, some internal links among my, within my content on my website, I may be able to bump the extra spot or two, the extra ranking position or two, to get a ton more traffic to that piece of content. So I'm going to be looking at how I can squeeze every drop out of my existing content and SEO, because although that a lot of people wouldn't traditionally think about that as conversion optimization, what you're doing is you're opening up the flow of traffic to your website if you do that, which of course is going to ultimately produce significantly higher ROI from any conversion optimization efforts you endeavor to put in place. So that would be the first thing I would do with my time. After that, I would dig into my Google Analytics, and I would begin looking at my top landing pages. And I would run an analysis, even if all I did it manually. And I think every time I've done this, I've done it manually, because frankly, I'm embarrassingly not good with Google Analytics. I just kind of hack together the things I need to do. So I'll go through and I will manually put together a report of what are my top landing pages. Of course, I know what my top conversion pages are on my site, the pages on my site that actually make me money. And I will analyze how much of my traffic from those landing pages is going through to those conversion pages. So that's just one conversion page.
You can do that with goals, can't you, in Google Analytics? You can go
yes.
goal conversions to your main converting web pages.
Yes, absolutely. Just set up a conversion event for basically if they hit this page, then they count towards that goal conversion. Absolutely.
Cool. So yeah, that would
Um,
be, so you can see what pages are most of your traffic is actually landing into, and then you see how much they are converting into your conversion focused pages. So would that be kind of like your, I guess it depends what it is. Like if you're doing like cost per acquisition, so if you're doing like affiliate marketing, or whether you're doing selling your own products and things like that, I guess that kind of depends on what those pages would look like.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, they're at least probably going to be some form of bridge page between your content and where you're referring them out to another offer of some kind. And so that would definitely be my starting point is understanding what my baseline is there. What are my conversion metrics looking like there? And after that, I would take some time to tweak the places I know beyond a shadow of a doubt from many tests I've run over the years are conversion opportunities that are missing on my website. For example, what a lot of people do on their websites, especially when they're newer to internet marketing, is they think the more banners I add and the more offers I add to my content, the more likely I am to make money. And you are absolutely incorrect if that's what you think. You are doing the exact opposite. There have been many studies on this, and all you have to do is reflect on a little bit of human experience to understand what's at play here psychologically. So if you've ever gone to a candy aisle in a supermarket, and you don't really know what you're wanting, you just know you want something sweet, or if you're more of a savory, salty person than the chip aisle, what we call in the United States is chips. Sorry, that's not going to be universal. Crisps, I guess.
Yeah, that's what we say. Crisps.
One way or the other, you're craving some kind of junk food, and you get there, and you're just kind of like, man, I don't know what I want. And the more you look, the more you just almost don't want anything, because there are just so many options. Your brain's overloaded. It's overwhelmed. I want to say it was in Malcolm Gladwell's Blink that they talked about this. Okay. And they talk about pasta sauces. And I think they have like 13 different pasta sauce choices. And ultimately, people just didn't make a decision because they got overwhelmed, as opposed to just like being offered regular pasta sauce or chunky pasta sauce. They made a decision at a statistically significantly higher rate. So the same thing happens, the same principle applies, and you can pull up study after study on this on Google if you don't believe me, like my co-founders in my startup seem to not believe me because we have this conversation about once every quarter. You have to you have to limit your calls to action on your website. You want to have for each type of content. So for example, on stoppingcms.com, we have paid survey content, we have blogging content, we have e-commerce content. The call to action for all of those different audiences is going to be very different. Mm-hmm. And there are plugins in WordPress that will allow you to say, hey, based on this category, I want to show this right-hand widget instead of this right-hand widget. So you can kind of throttle some of those things. But for each audience type, I would not have more than one offer, one call to action. And I would be doing everything I could to make sure on the pages on my website, especially the highest traffic pages on my website, I would implement a number of things. This is just kind of my formula personally for websites that I'm probably giving away way too much information here, but I always make sure that I have a right-hand banner, and I do split testing to find out what right-hand banner is going to work best, and I make sure it's sticky. I make sure as the person scrolls, that right-hand banner scrolls with them. There's a free plugin that does that. It's called something really weird like Q2W4 sticky widget. There's also something just called like sticky widgets, but I never got it to work for my personal coding. Or it took personal custom coding that I couldn't work on my own website because I'm an idiot. And so even after all these years. So yes, I make sure there's a right side widget that scrolls with the user as they're reading. I make sure to run split tests to make sure that widget is actually converting. I split test design, and I also split test copy. You don't do both at the same time, because otherwise,
how do you split test that? Do you use a plugin for that?
No, typically I'm running those split tests manually.
Okay.
A lot of themes these days, like my favorite premium theme suite that I use, and I recommend whether people are buying through my affiliate link or not, is Thrive.
Yeah.
Thrive has just an incredible suite of tools for conversion optimization and testing for blog owners. And so they have A/B split testing built in a lot of areas like that with their different plugins. I think they're like $228 a year and probably going up consistently though.
Yeah.
So it's not like it's a cheap tool, and it's not like it's at all required. You can do what I still often do, and that's just for 1 week you have this banner up, and then the next week you have another banner up, and then you compare the numbers from the two, and you see if you had statistical significance, verify that you had a high enough confidence interval. Yeah. Typically, I'm aiming for at least 95%. Now we're getting into really overwhelming statistics class stuff that's probably making people cry. But if you don't understand any of that, it's easy to Google, and they're actually really, really straightforward concepts. And I'm just, running those numbers and keeping track in a spreadsheet manually, possibly, and just seeing what's working best. But what's really important when you're running split tests, as we're here talking about conversion optimization, is you're not going to have remotely as valid of a test. Yeah, maybe during the early broad strokes when you don't know, when you're just like testing messaging. Yes, maybe you have a headline that's totally different and text, like body text in that banner that is fairly, there's a big variance between the two. So the headline and the body of text are completely different, both of them, on each one of those banners. I would make sure those banners had the same design, though, because the more variables you change at once, the more you're compromising your test. You want to isolate the things you actually want to test. So once you know, hey, this general type of messaging is performing much better than this other type of messaging with this audience, then maybe you split test the background of the banner. And you don't change anything but the background when you're running that A/B split test. And then okay, I found the background or the color that I really like for this test and seems to be working the most. I have statistical significance on the tests I've run. Now I'm going to change the headline and see if the headline converts better. But you don't want to adjust the body copy because you're going to compromise your test. So you're isolating each time the element that you actually want to A/B split test. That is super, super, super critically important for any valid A/B or form of multivariate testing. Nice. When you're trying to improve conversion optimization. So I'm going to do stuff like that with my banner. I'm going to go through that whole process. We're talking several weeks here, and crunching numbers. Watching them every day doesn't do you any good. But also, you want to be careful of running too many different tests across your website at once for the same reason, because maybe they're compounding in some way. That's now that you change that other element that you were testing alongside the banner element, for example, the banner widget. Now your test isn't really reliable anymore because you were running too many tests at once. So after I'm done running the banner test, maybe I start to test a link in my header navigation for free training, or start here, or how to start. Just trying different copy for that navigation link. Pop-ups, whether they're full screen pop-ups or they are, little slip up ribbons that come up from the bottom with calls to action. That's another element I'm absolutely going to implement, and I'm going to test and see what's working the best. And then I'm also going to work in content calls to action on at least my top 3 to 5 posts, my top highest traffic 3 to 5 landing pages. To make sure that throughout that post there are buttons, typically on my sites, that have a clear call to action over to my conversion page. And typically I try to make those buttons contextually relevant to whatever we're writing about at that point in the article. Certainly that makes it a little bit more laborious and a little bit more manual, but you're absolutely going to have better conversion overall if it is contextually relevant to whatever you're discussing whenever you're inserting that call to action. So to bring us full circle here and just break down the entire formula, to improve conversion optimization, I'm going to look at my top traffic landing pages. I'm going to see how much of that traffic is going to my main conversion page for that audience so that I have a baseline and I know where I'm starting. And then I'm going to, across my website, implement tests for a right side banner widget that is sticky and scrolls with the user as they are reading the article, because that makes it very hard to ignore. Just again, talking about just, evolutionary traits that are in all of us. Things like that are much easier to get noticed. It's the same reason we notice motion and things like that. So right-hand side, I'm going to be testing some banner widgets. I'm going to be testing some form of menu navigation option that takes them to my highest converting, or my main conversion page. And I'm going to be testing buttons throughout the content that drive to that conversion page as well. As time goes on, I will probably add some sort of footer element, not deep in the footer, but we're talking like just below the content, so that when someone's done reading, there's some form of call to action there. And if you play around with those conversion elements alone, you will be in the top 90th percentile. You'll be better than 90% of other digital marketers, if not 95 to 98%. You'll be among somewhere between the top 2 to 10% of digital marketers when it comes to conversion optimization. If you just learn a little bit about split testing and you play with those elements on your highest traffic content on your website, you'll probably, if you aren't doing any of that right now and you go and you implement that on your sites, those different elements, and you stick with the tests, and even when you get stuff that's really discouraging, you run another test and you run another test and you run another test until you finally get to where you want to be. You probably, if you're not doing any of that right now, have 2 to 4 times as much money sitting on the vine with your traffic, 2 to 4 times the revenue sitting on the vine with your traffic than you are currently reaping.
And on that exact same topic, you send them to a conversion page. Would you try and collect their email address in between that step? So would you send them to like a email opt-in, or like what would you do with regards to collecting email addresses and things like that? Or would you just that's a whole separate thing?
Try and collect the email. I always caution people with Russell Brunson stuff because he is an incredible marketer, but everything he does funnels into ClickFunnels right now, obviously. And at the end of the day, everything he does is to get you to buy ClickFunnels, which it can be a great tool for many things. I own ClickFunnels myself, largely because I'm just too lazy to convert my landing pages that are in there out of there. So I'm kind of trapped into paying $97 a month in their ecosystem. And that's what happens to a lot of people. Yeah. There are much better, not much better, but equivalent tools out there now that are much less expensive. So with that said, there's a concept that he may not be the originator, but he's who I learned it from, which is the moment someone hits your website, no matter what your traffic source is, whether it's paid traffic, whether it's organic traffic, however you're getting that traffic to your website, you do not own that traffic until you collect the email address. And now you have a way to get back in touch with that person, build a relationship with that person. And even if you don't make the conversion right now, you can certainly make a conversion in the future when the timing's a little bit better, they're more open to it, you've established more of a relationship, etc. And so for that reason, I am almost always trying to collect the email address. There have been instances where I've run the tests and it just ends up killing my conversions enough to try and collect the email in between, largely due to the audience not being engaged enough or the offer that I'm referring them to being fairly low ticket, $2 or $4 per conversion. And when that's the case, I will cut out the email conversion step, but obviously recognizing that I may be sacrificing longer term revenue if I just built out a sequence for that person. So yes, the vast majority of the time I am collecting an email address on some sort of bridge page.
Awesome. That is amazing, Ian. I can't wait to listen back to this and implement all of this. This is so useful for me personally, but hopefully tons of other people as well. And yeah, I mean, the same as what I said last time, I could honestly just keep talking to you, but I'm so aware of your time, and you said how busy you are this week. So, thank you so much for your time again. I really appreciate it.
Of course. I very much enjoyed it, and I hope your audience enjoys it as well. And, and best of luck. I hope it helps anyone hearing this on your journey. That's the reason we're here.
Thanks, Ian. Just one last thing before you go. How can people get in contact with you? Or I know you have a big launch coming up this week as well. So I didn't know if you wanted to explain a bit more about that as well.
Yeah, I mean the biggest goings on for me that you will always be able to keep up with what I'm doing and what value I'm giving away for free or incredibly low cost is going to be at ianpribyl.com. I'm beginning to keep that much more up to date. And so any books I publish will be there. Any links to websites where we're publishing really high quality training for free, etc. Those will be on ianpribyl.com. And remarkably dumb move that is very hard to spell. So that's IAN, P as in Paul, RI, B as in boy, YL.com. That's where you could find anything. And there's the way to reach me via email. If you have anything that I can help with, would be ian@stoppingscams.com. You can always reach me there, and either myself or my assistant will be able to help you with anything you send through that way.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Ian.
You're very welcome, Mike. Thank you.
I really enjoyed that chat so much. And I just think there's so much information, there's so much value in there that anyone can take away. Maybe you're not at a stage where you can start implementing this stuff, but I guarantee you will get there if you keep going. So it's so helpful for me. And I've already started doing some of these things that he spoke about in here. But anyway, I'm going to just quickly summarize. Number one is to use Google Search Console. And I have heard this before, but he made some really valid points in there. That find out what Google is actually ranking your site for. So once you find those keywords, there might actually be some surprise keywords in there that you didn't even know that you weren't even trying to rank for, and they might actually really help you to make a conversion. So if you can see a keyword that you're getting lots of impressions for but not many clicks, chances are your post has touched on it. And if you just made that a bit better, maybe you put it in your title. Don't change your URL. That's a big one. But if you could put it in your title, put it in a subheading, put it in an image, the name for an image, or just in the text itself, that could really help to boost your rankings for that. Number two is to use Google Analytics and find out what your top landing pages are. It's just a really great way to straight away see, okay, these are my main traffic generating posts and things like that. And it will give you a good idea of other content that you probably should be producing that is similar to that as well, which, because obviously people are liking it for your website, or Google might be sending people to your website for that. Know your conversion percentages as well. So know your converting pages. So if you have a sales page, it might even be for an affiliate marketing product, but it's really important to make sure you have these specific pages where you're trying to send people to. It could be a roundup of best of posts, like best basketball shoes or something like that. Number three is to tweak your conversion opportunities. There's three things that I wrote down here. There should be only one place to click on important websites. So think, if you've got a sales page, there's basically one place that you're trying to send them to. If you're trying to send them to multiple different places, it's not going to convert as well. Limit your call to actions. So you shouldn't just be having a call to action here. This should be very clear when you have your call to actions, and, spread out through the content so that people can find them easily. And then use call to actions by category. So if, for example, you're in the gardening niche, if you had a category on winter gardening, maybe you had greenhouse, maybe you had gardening in allotments. I'm not sure what categories you would have. They're bad examples, but you should probably have a call to action for each category. So maybe you have a book that shows people how to use grow tomatoes in greenhouses, which would be perfect in the greenhouse category. But you also have how to make sure that another book that is like how to make sure that your crops don't die in the winter. That's great for gardening in the winter. And that's obviously going to help to really increase your conversions. Number 4 is to split test. Only do one thing at a time. That was really important. But I'm going to say 4 places, which Ian talks about in there, where you can actually split test things today. He spoke as well about getting a program that actually tests this for you. So Thrive, I use Thrive. I just find it so good. Like Thrive leads. It's hard to beat for the price, really. It's so many things in there as well. I don't even use everything. But number 1 is the header menu banner. So right at the top, your menu at the top of the page, split test, try different things in there. And you can actually use Google Analytics to even track as well, those sort of things. But Thrive can do that for you. Number 2 is pop-ups. Number 3 is your in-content buttons and call to actions. And then number 4 is a sidebar widget, basically. So you can change all of those copy, images, things like that, and split test, see what's working, try and make those improvements. And then lastly, number 5 is something that he kind of was just hinting at throughout that whole chat. It's just you've got to be willing to adapt. It's so easy to kind of get into our routines and what we're actually doing and kind of just be set in our ways. Whereas just by doing these split tests and adapting, making these little tweaks and things and tracking them, that's really important as well, is to actually track these things. You can make such a huge difference. Now, what I would personally add to all of this is it's probably not worth doing these kind of split tests until you have, at least 100, maybe 200 people visiting your site every single day. It's almost pointless. You're not getting enough traffic to actually test what is and isn't working. You're not going to be able to have like an actual realistic sample size, if you know what I mean. So if you're not getting like 100 visits to your site per day, then this is probably a podcast which is good to come back to at a later stage when you are doing it. But it's good to be aware of it up front and aware of different places where you could be trying things out. Anyway, really hope that helped, guys. You can check out the show notes with all these links and places, everything that Ian's kind of mentioned on the website. It's maketimeonline.com/72.
Thanks for listening in to this episode of Make Time Online. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss any future episodes. And please take a moment to write a review for our podcast in the App Store. Keep changing for the better, guys. Take care.